The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Philadelphia Eagles have an intense rivalry that has gone under the radar for the NFL at large, but is very alive and well within the two fan bases. This rivalry is especially focused on playoff games. The two teams have played each other 20 times over the course of their history. As it stands right now, the rivalry is split, with the Buccaneers having won 10 games and the Eagles having won 10 games. The Buccaneers have won 8 regular season games against the Eagles, and the Eagles have won 8 regular season games against the Buccaneers. Their playoff matchups are also evenly split, with the Buccaneers having won 2 and the Eagles having won 2 games. They have played against each other in the playoffs in 1979, 2000, 2002, and 2003. Their very first game against each other was on September 18, 1977, Week 1 of the 1977 season, where the Eagles pulled out a 3-13 victory against the hapless Buccaneers, who had just come off a winless inaugural season in 1976. The Buccaneers would not experience their first win as an NFL team until 12 weeks later during the Week 13 matchup against the New Orleans Saints in 1977. The Buccaneers would eventually have their first winning record a couple of years later in 1979, making the playoffs for the first time in franchise history. Their first playoff opponent? The Philadelphia Eagles, who they faced in the divisional round December 29, 1979. The Buccaneers walked away with a 24-17 victory, making the Eagles their first playoff victim in the history of the Buccaneers franchise. The two teams played each other during the regular season 5 times over the next 21 years, with the Buccaneers winning 3 times and the Eagles winning 2. On December 31, 2000, the Buccaneers and the Eagles faced off once again in the playoffs. This was a wild card round, with both teams placing second in their division. Tony Dungy was the coach of the Buccaneers, and this was his 3rd playoff appearance with the Buccaneers, having lost in the 1997 divisional round to the Green Bay Packers and losing the 1999 NFC Championship round the year previous to the St. Louis Rams. The Eagles went on to beat the Buccaneers in a 21-3 blowout in that wild card game, sending the Buccaneers home once again, with Coach Tony Dungy having made it to the playoffs 3 times in his tenure with the Buccaneers, but never making it to the Super Bowl. The very next year, the NFL 2001 season, the Buccaneers posted a 9-7 record, placing them 3rd in the division, but still able to squeak into the playoffs as a wild card. Their opponent in the wild card round ended up being the Philadelphia Eagles, who themselves had placed first in the NFC East with an 11-5 record. This was the Buccaneers' 4th playoff appearance in 6 years under the leadership of Coach Tony Dungy. With an ensemble cast of players such as Mike Allstott, Warwick Dunn, Brad Johnson, Martin Gramatica, Keyshawn Johnson, Derek Brooks, John Lynch, Rondé Barber, Brian Kelly, Simeon Rice, Shelton Quarles, and Warren Sapp, the Tony Dungy-led team was going up against a formidable opponent in the Eagles, who were themselves bringing a loaded team led by Coach Andy Reid and players such as Donovan McNabb, Deuce Staley, James Thrash, Chad Lewis, Hugh Douglas, Mike Caldwell, Jeremiah Trotter, and Brian Dawkins. As before, the Eagles walked away with a decisive 31-9 victory, the Buccaneers not having scored a touchdown in the 3rd straight playoff game, sending the Buccaneers home and out of the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row. This playoff loss, the 2nd time in a row that the Buccaneers were knocked out of the first round by the Eagles, ended up costing Coach Tony Dungy his job, as he was fired and replaced the following year by Coach John Gruden. The very next season, on October 20th, 2002, the Buccaneers and the Eagles met again during the regular season. The Buccaneers came into the game with a 5-1 record, while the Eagles were 3-2 coming off a bye week. Again, the Eagles ended up pulling out a 20-10 victory over the Buccaneers. It appeared at this point that the Eagles simply had the Buccaneers' number, having won all 4 of their last 4 matchups, with 2 of them being the Eagles knocking the Buccaneers out of the playoffs. The Eagles ended the season with a 12-4 record, winning the NFC East Division title. The Buccaneers also ended the season with a 12-4 record, winning the NFC South Division title. Both teams made it to the NFC Championship, giving us a showdown between the 2 teams once again. The 2002 NFL season saw the last of the Eagles' home stadium, Veterans Stadium, also known as the Vet. This infamous stadium was host to some of the most memorable games in NFL history, including the Body Bag Game, 4th and 1 game, Bounty Bowl, as well as Bounty Bowl 2. The Vet was so notorious for rowdy fans that it even had a courthouse inside the stadium to convict fans who had gotten out of hand. The stadium was scheduled for demolition, with the 2002 season being the last season of its use. On January 19, 2003, the Buccaneers went into Veterans Stadium for the NFC Championship game against the Eagles as a 4-point underdog. The Eagles had beaten the Buccaneers in their past 4 matchups. The Buccaneers were led by a new coach in John Gruden, and the temperature for the game was below freezing, which the Buccaneers had never won a playoff game in cold temperature. The first time the Buccaneers had ever won even a regular season game in temperatures below freezing happened during the 2002 season, just weeks before the NFC Championship game, beating the lowly Bears in Week 17. The temperature at Veterans Stadium for the NFC Championship game between the Buccaneers and the Eagles ended up being 26 degrees, with a wind chill factor of 16. However, the Buccaneers overcame the adversity. With the most iconic play in Buccaneers history, Rondé Barber returned an interception of Donovan McNabb 92 yards for a touchdown, sealing a 27-10 win by the Buccaneers over the Eagles, and having the Buccaneers go on to win the Super Bowl for the first time in franchise history. The last game ever played at Veterans Stadium was the Buccaneers defeating the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, January 19, 2003. The very next year, in Week 1 of the 2003 NFL season, the 2 teams faced off again. This time, the venue was in the Eagles' new stadium, Lincoln Financial Field. It was the inaugural game for this stadium. After beating the Eagles to close out Veterans Stadium, the Buccaneers went on to give the Eagles their first loss in the new stadium. The Buccaneers won the game in a shutout, 17-0. December 9th, 2012, the Buccaneers were a 6-6 team and needed a win to stay in playoff contention for the 2012 season. Rondé Barber was the only Buccaneer player left from the 2002 Super Bowl champion Buccaneer team. The fans and the team desperately wanted to make it to the playoffs, as we all knew this was going to be Rondé Barber's last season. Our opponent for the game? The Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles came into Raymond James Stadium limping with a 3-9 record on an 8-game losing streak and completely out of playoff contention with nothing but pride to play for, and underdogs by 7 points. The Buccaneers had the game wrapped up until the very last second when Nick Foles threw a touchdown to Jeremy McClain with no time left on the clock, giving the Eagles a 23-21 victory, knocking the Buccaneers out of playoff contention. This was a shocking outcome, and one of the most memorable moments was seeing Rondé Barber stunned in the end zone, realizing that his last season was going out with a fizzle. The Buccaneers have won the last 3 matchups against the Eagles, beating them in 2015, 2018, and most recently in Week 6 of the 2021 season. Now the two teams face each other again for their 5th playoff game. Someone is walking away with a win. Whoever comes out victorious in this game will give their franchise the winning overall record between the two teams, the winning playoff record between the two teams, and will give their team a shot at getting the most prized possession in all of sports, the Lombardi Trophy. Go Bucs!